So welcome back, students. We will just continuing with Ascaris lumbricoides, which is the second type of nematode parasite. And this Ascaris lumbricoides, both the adult worms and the larvae, that causes the pathogenic effects in the host body. Both the adult and the larvae causes the pathogenic effects in the host body. And usually this adult worm causes the discomfort in the upper part of the small intestine. So then it also causes a nausea, vomiting, headache, etc. So these are the symptoms that is caused by the presence of this Ascaris adult in the body of an in the body of a man. Then these pathogenic effects includes the toxic effects, such as the body fluids of the Ascaris is toxic, and it may lead to the fever, allergic manifestations such as the edema of the face. Edema means neerkatta ennu parayile, face la there will be the heavy load of fluid, and it looks bulged, face looks bulged. Then irritation of the upper respiratory tract, etc. Then spoliative effect, that is, it absorbs the nutrients of the host, mainly the proteins and the vitamins from the host body, and leading to the malnutrition mainly in the hyper-infected children, and it may lead to the vitamin A deficiency. And it is for this reason, along with the vaccination in small children, the vitamin A drops are also given. Along with the polio drops, the vitamin A drops are also given to small children. And here you can see the heavy infestation of this Ascaris worm in an organ. And usually these worms, when it is heavy load in a body of an higher vertebrate, it absorbs a majority of the nutrients, then proteins and vitamins, and it causes a harmful effects for the life of the host. Then the mechanical effect, that is another pathogenic effect. It produces intestinal obstruction when present in the large numbers. If these worms are present in the intestine in large numbers, it will obstruct the passage of the stool or the fecal matter through this intestine. And it also causes a cramps and abdominal muscles, cramps of the abdominal muscles. It leads to the gut ulcers, leading to secondary infection. Then the another type of pathogenic effect is the ectopic effect, that is, the worms frequently migrate into the stomach or the esophagus at night, and they enter into the respiratory passage accidentally, and usually they block the normal functioning of the lungs. So heavy infestation can lead to severe problems. Then the general circulation of this larvae, sometimes this larvae passes through the pulmonary system, pulmonary circulation, and it reaches the heart, vital organs such as the heart, kidney, even the brain, lungs, etc., where they set up an unusual clinical syndrome as they carry the microorganism, and they cause a pneumonia. Then in the lung, it can cause the infection for the lung. It causes a syndrome called as a Loeffler's syndrome, and this leads to the fever, cough with the blood tinged sputum may be seen. Then in the blood, it leads to the eosinophilia in many cases. So here there is a pneumonic patient section of a lung. In this you can see the larval form of this Ascaris. Here also you can see a larvae in the lung tissue. So heavy infestation can cause a severe damage to all the vital organs. So these are the larval forms, a cross section of a histopathology, or the histologic section, or the section of a tissue from the lungs that is infested by this Ascaris. Then this is the picture of a young girl who is very much infested by this Ascaris with a distended abdomen. You can see the abdomen with the distended abdomen, which is a characteristic of a severe attack of Ascaris, and a condition, a disease condition called as a ascariasis. Then these roundworm are collected from the antihelminthic therapy in the child. So if a child is very much infested by the adult worms, it can be removed by the antihelminthic therapy techniques. Then how we can prevent the infestation of these Ascaris worms or the roundworms? First of all, you have to wash your hands before food. Wash your vegetables and fruits properly. Always keep your food covered. Drink the water obtained from the safe source, and prevent the defecation in the open environment. So these are the preventive measures. Wash your hands, wash the vegetables and fruits properly, keep the food covered so that it remain uncontaminated. Then drink the water which is obtained from the safe source. That means you are not allowed to drink the water from a contaminated source. Then prevent the defecation in open, so that the fecal infected man's fecus will not be contaminating the freshwater system. Then always keep the food covered. And how we can control this ascarias? So maintain the proper hygiene in the food and the drink. That is a major control measures. Then the medicines such as oil, chinopedium with tetrachloroethine, piperacin, dithiazine, etc. Then there are the many lot more drugs, but generally the doctors will recommend the antihelminth drugs such as albendazole can be given. Then the surgery is required in the case of the heavy infestation. And mebendazole about 200 mg is advisable for the adult, and 100 mg for the children for the 3 days is also an effective treatment against this Ascaris infection. So the next type of parasitic element that you have to study, it is an Ancylostoma duodenale. This is commonly called as a hookworm. It is an endoparasite, endoparasitic nematodes inhabiting the small intestine of man, and it usually attaches to the human intestine, sucks the blood, lymph and the tissue fluid, and often causes a disease called as a encyclostomiasis. Encyclostomiasis, or the hookworm disease. It causes a disease called as a encyclostomiasis. That is encyclostomiasis or the hookworm disease. Then it is actually the parasite which was first discovered in the year 1838 by an Italian physician called as Ancilio Dubini, and it is widely distributed in all the tropical and the subtropical countries, and it is found in the Europe, North Africa, India, Punjab, etc. And the adult worm lives in the small intestine of man, and particularly in the jejunum, that is small intestine part. And when we come to the morphology of this hookworm, it is small grayish white cylindrical worm, and it appears a reddish brown when freshly passed in fecus due to the ingested blood in its intestinal tract, and the anterior end is bent slightly dorsally, hence the name is called as a hookworm. So the anterior end of this worm is slightly hooked shaped, and for that reason they are called as a hookworm. And the buccal cavity, this is a scanning image of the buccal cavity. It is armed with the 2 pairs of teeth. You can see here the 2 pairs of the teeth and the 2 no-black plates. 2 no-black plates here, and it has both the digestive and the excretory system, and there are the 5 glands connected with the digestive system. One of them are called as a esophageal gland, which secretes a ferment which prevents the clotting of the blood from the site of the bite. With the help of these 2 no-black plates, they usually cling to the intestinal wall, and in order to prevent the clotting of the blood from this site, it secretes a ferment, and it is secreted from the esophageal gland. Then the sexual dimorphism is exhibited by this ancylostome duodenale. The size, it is smaller, and it is about 8 millimeter in length. The female, it is the male, it is smaller. This picture, the male, it is smaller than the female, and the extended like the umbrella-like fashion called as a copulation bursa. You can see here the male, the one end, it is slightly expanded, and this region is called as a copulation bursa. The posteriorly it opens with the cloaca, and in the case of the female, it is longer. It's actually longer than that of the male, and the tapering without any, it is tapering without any bursa, and the genital opening, it is present in the middle third of the body. Genital opening, it is on the middle third of the opening, so somewhere in the middle of the opening. So this is a diagrammatic view. This is the copulatory bursa region. You can see here extended region, that is a copulatory bursa in males, and the female, it is really tapering. So the worm assumes a Y shape. So anterior you can see a slight bending, whether it is a male or the female, a slight bending is there. So the worm assumes a Y-shaped figure during copulation, and the copulatory bursa consists of 3 lobes, so 1 dorsal and the 2 lateral lobes, and each lobe is supported by the chitinous rays, and totally a number of 14. You can see here a number of ray-like structure. So this bursa is somewhat like this, and all these chitinous rays are enclosed in a membrane. Okay, and it gets continued like this. Then the lifespan of the adult worm is about 3 to 4 years. This ancylostoma, it is a dioecious, that is, the male and the female exhibit the sexual dimorphism, and as you can see, the male, it is actually the male, it is a shorter and snouter than the female. Then at the posterior end, as said earlier, there is a cloacal opening, whereas the female doesn't have any anal opening, and the posterior end of the female, it is appointed with a caudal spine, while the male, it is broad without a caudal spine, and the male has a trilobe cuticular expansion around the cloacal opening. It is called as a cloacal bursa. It is actually to the grip the female during the mating, and it is absent in the case of the female. And bursa, as said earlier, it is supported by the certain rays like rib rays. Then protruding from the cloaca is a pair of long and the slender copulatory spicules, or the penile setae, in the male, and this setae are absent in the case of the female. Okay, so that is about the sexual dimorphism seen in these organisms. Next we will see the life cycle of these forms. Before going to the life cycle, we will just see how the eggs looks like. The eggs are usually the oval or elliptical in shape, and it is surrounded by a transparent separate hyaline shell membrane, and contains a segmented ovum, usually with the 4 blastomeres. You can see here the 4 blastomeres. and usually it's float in the saturated solution. Then eggs, when passed out to the fecals, are not infective to the man. That's all in this video lecture. Thank you.